Hello and welcome to this video. Today we're going to look into NGX Translate, which is a popular library for internationalization I18N within Angular. We're going in this particular scenario going to look into adding it to the application. We're also going to make sure that we have two different languages so we can ensure that we always can switch in between the languages. So the first thing we need to do is essentially install two packages, which is going to be NGX Translate Core, which is going to make it possible for us to actually use the translation. Second thing is going to be the HTTP loader, which is going to make it possible for us to actually load the different translation files. So that's the first step. Once that is done, we are going to we need to have HTTP client module, which is going to allow us to actually fetch the different files through HTTP. Uh, the next thing we want is the translate module. We need to import it from, needs to come from the NGX translate core. And here we can pass in a default configuration. We can say default language is going to be English, and we want to use the default language that we have. We can also we also need to provide a loader, which is essentially going to load the different files. So we want to we're going to provide translate loader, which also comes from the same import, or it should come. I have some issues with my IntelliSense for some strange reason. We want to use a factory, and this factory is going to be a great translate loader, so it's going to be a function that we provide. And then we're going to use the HTTP client for us to actually fetch the files. So we can go ahead and create this function. You can place it within this file or you can place it within another file. I think that's taste what you feel is the best for your project. So we're going to use the HTTP translate loader, which we'll have to import from HTTP loader. So of course we need to have the function syntax here. So once this is done, it essentially uses the HTTP client. It uses the prefix. So what is the prefix of the files? Assets I18N, and we also have the suffix, which is going to be JSON. We're going to utilize JSON files. Alright, so once this is done, we're pretty much set up to actually utilize it within the application. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we have language files. So we need to navigate to the assets folder, and within the assets folder we need to create, if you don't have it already, create a new file called I18N. Here we can create new languages. So we're going to have one for the English one, and we're going to utilize one for the Swedish one that we have. Alright, so it's JSON, so we'll have a title, and the title will have my Swedish title. We're going to use a similar one, my English title, for the English file that we have. Alright, so now we have two different files. So the default one will be the English one, and it's supposed to preview this one at first. And then we have the Swedish one. This one we want to make sure that it's being previewed when we choose to switch the language within the GUI. So we'll jump into the app component. Let's inject the translate service, which comes from NGX Translate Core. We also want to create a switch function, which essentially changes the language based on if we're passing in Swedish or English. Yeah. All right. So once this is done, we should be able to go to the HTML. Let's add a button, which makes it possible for us to switch to English. We'll do a similar thing to switch to Swedish, and then we're going to write whatever we had in our file here, so title, and then we're going to use a translate pipe which comes from the NGX translate core. So this will essentially go to the file, it will look up the key, and it will print the value of that key. So my English title here, so whenever I press the Swedish button it should switch to Swedish, and when I press the English it go back to English. So in this case we are actually utilizing the NGX translate. We're utilizing two different language files with a default one that we have, which is the English one. In this way you can utilize NGX translate for your application. Thank you for watching. All the best. Bye.